How many of you out there ever heard of the word newsie? I was involved with a movement and a page on Facebook. It was a conservative political movement, which I didn't see any harm in. And that having been said, yesterday I took a hit. Now, I'm not a 15-year-old girl, but it was disruptive. Over the last 5 years, I've slipped into the folly of using Facebook as my main ramp for distribution. And at the description of this video, you can see all the sites that are there where I come out of. They're all clickable, by the way. If you want to read this article, you click on any of them, you probably find it. There was the usual link on Google Plus and Twitter, but those were automatic, and so I just didn't really work with them. They just happened. I let the auto share do it instead. I was frankly surprised, especially with WordPress, the way it come up. The bottom line was, seduced by the ease of posting, I didn't let these sites that you see in the description stand on their own. Rather, I would post the links to the various groups where the said articles might be of interest. It became almost an art. For instance, if I wrote a human interest story about a baby at Christmas, it wouldn't find any place on C.J. Grisham's Open Carry Texas. And likewise, an article involving a comparison between the Second Amendment and the OK Corral would not be appropriate for the ladies of the Garden Club up in Boston. This group that I was involved in supported a particular candidate. It was Donald Trump. But if you know, in print I don't mention it, because if I do, then the algorithms in place will flag the article, and here we go again. Suffice to say, I guess I was the chief editor, that's what they tell me, and I pride myself in being articulate, flying just under the radar. I use op-ed principles, but Facebook handed me my face yesterday. I got up yesterday and checked my feeds, and I ended up hollering something about Mother's Day. Well, at least the first part had mother in it, but I digress. Thousands of articles, God knows how many links, connections, and information leads stopped dead in their track because some punk got out of bed in San Bernardino with his shorts in a knot. Well, everything happens for a reason. And the reason for this was God wanted me to put their stuff in the street. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Let me tell you all a parable. Many years ago, there were powerful newspaper chains out of New York. You've heard the names, Hertz, all that. I won't go into all of it. But they made tons of money. They even started the Spanish-American War, and they dined on caviar every night. At the bottom of the food chain was some 10 to 12-year-old little boys that they call Newsies. Every morning, the Newsies would pick up their papers and hit the streets. Extra, read all about it. The only problem was, at the end of the day, if the Newsies had any papers left, they didn't eat caviar. They got to eat newspapers. The cost of the returned newspapers was taken out of the pennies that they'd earned each day. Well, what are the Newsies to do? Well, they went and they asked to be able to turn in the unsold papers back at the printing office, but the very idea of these multi-million-dollar conglomerates, the shakers and movers of the world, taking off a few pennies for freezing orphans trying to survive in the streets of New York, well, that was just unthinkable. So the Newsies came up with a plan B. Now, bear in mind, these boys probably couldn't even read the letter B, but they could add. And they knew that William Randolph Hearst was not about to leave the club and go hawking newspapers in the snow. So they just stopped selling newspapers. Constipation is uncomfortable in any degree. Now, the Newsies didn't take over the newspapers, but in a brilliant stroke, the powers that be decided that a return policy might be the best thing for all concerned. Facebook has a phenomenal story, the American dream on steroids. The ease of use, the communication potential, indeed the actual dissolving of national borders is heretofore unprecedented, with very powerful entities at the top and all us Newsies at the bottom. If we rebel just a little bit or complain or say anything deemed unacceptable by the new Randolph Hearst, then the all-controlling God of the algorithm simply takes away all our newspapers. Now, if that happens to you and you beg, conform, and clamor, then you deserve exactly what you get. because what is acceptable now will become unacceptable in the future, entirely dependent on what side of the bed the prince of clicks and likes gets up on in the morning. Freedom of speech is such a simple idea. However, as with everything else, it has been defined and redefined at the whim of whomever has the money for the lawyers. Not only that, there are free speech zones where the definition becomes the property of the organizations, such as Facebook. Facebook certainly does have the right to regulate what goes on to their free service, and as long as you're sharing pictures of your dog, that's all very fine. But the moment you come to the defense of a political candidate that's not on the approved list, Facebook will take your ass, hat, and all your cattle. And they won't give them back until you fall in line. And boys and girls, that's a face fact. I invented that word, by the way. Now, my dog is cute, but as a journalist, I find this totally unacceptable. The free flow of ideas is critical to our society. Indeed, the very word liberal means try something new. At the beginning of this article, I explained my distribution process with Facebook at the center. Well, this Newsies stopped selling Facebook news yesterday. I'm making those connections that you see in the description above, standalone entities with independent distribution that will be awarded to each one. The only links that will ever appear in Facebook will be the general links you saw above, and if those links should say get edited by some faceless person screens them for fake news, well, I've got some news for them. It's going to be slow, but I got time, I don't care. My message is this. If you want to share pictures of your dinner on Facebook, that's fine. But if you want to actually participate in life, then you better become a newsie. And baby, it's cold outside.